dear friends. It's very difficult to close an extremely demanding discussion of 3 hours altogether on questions like taxation and investment, as well as fiscal rules. But first of all, I would like to thank the organizations which collectively made this discussion possible. Friedrich-Ebert-Stiftung, but also TASC from Dublin, Renner Institut from Vienna, the Chamber of Labour, as well as the Independent Commission for the Reform of International Corporate Taxation. We all needed to join forces, and I think this alliance should stay together with the distinguished members of the European Parliament, Margarida Marques, but also Joachim Schuster, who have been with us this afternoon and discussed these very important matters with leading experts from a great variety of European countries. Since we went through this somewhat technocratic debate about tax details and investment policy, as well as fiscal governance, let me allow a little bit of humor at the very end. And this comes to my mind because of the specific political momentum which Margarida was also referring to, because about 8 years ago, 2013, indeed, the European Union was emerging from the euro area crisis slowly, but very, very slowly. And a lot of ideas, a lot of proposals were already on the table. CCCTB, which was discussed with several options today, was already on the table. FTT was on the table. Fiscal union, banking union, various elements of the banking union, unemployment insurance. So many things were already on the table. And obviously, we were wondering which of these elements would have the political feasibility. Because with a little bit of understanding of macroeconomics, you knew that all these have relevance. But it's one thing to be convinced about the need, if not necessity, of these reforms. The other one is, what is actually possible, what might fly, as they always say in Brussels. And then the answer often was that, well, quite a few things might be possible, but not before the German elections. And the German elections of September 2013 had to pass, but that was already very close to the end of the mandate of the Parliament as well as the Commission. So 1 year later, practically the Juncker plan came out of this big effort, and a little bit of more flexible interpretation of the fiscal rules. And now we are in a similar situation, not simply because we are after the German elections, but also because we need to orchestrate a recovery from a deep and really unprecedented recession. And I must highlight that in this crisis, of course, the European Union has already been much more innovative and constructively innovative than in the previous crisis. At the same time, we are definitely not at the end of the road of reforms. We have just reopened one of the most important discussions about the fiscal rules, and more generally speaking, how economic governance should be conducted. While closing this session, I'm not going to go back into the details of this discussion, but let me just highlight something which I consider absolutely fundamental here, which is basically to replace the amplifying effects with mitigating effects. I think the fundamental problem which we saw in the previous crisis was that the way the rules were applied to manage and sometimes micromanage economic governance within European Union member states was actually amplifying the crisis, polarizing the situation, created from small asymmetries much greater imbalances in 2 or 3 years' time between 2010 and 12 until the Eurozone was already at the verge of disintegration. And obviously the key question would be how to ensure that the actual rules are not amplifying a shock, whether it is an internal or an exogenous shock, but actually mitigate and create convergence and greater cohesion within the European Union. So I think after the German elections, probably many things will be possible, at least at the level of the discussion. But I think very important changes that even Klaus Regling, who is one of the founding fathers of the orthodox economic governance structure in the European Union, voiced his opinion about the need to reform these rules. And last week we heard about the departure of Jens Weidmann from the Bundesbank. I think these are very important signs about the openness to reconsider various elements of the reform. This is not only about the framing, but also many specific details, and you can count on FEPS to continue working on the framing of economic governance hand in hand with our member organizations, with the MEPs of the socialist political family, and also progressive experts across Europe. We also continue working on the various details of this policy agenda. I think we would all agree that there is a great urgency for a variety of reasons, not simply because this debate is going to happen now about the fiscal rules, but also because we have to ensure that in each and every European Union country, governments can pursue a green recovery, which also facilitates a technological transition in a way that fulfills the expectations of European citizens about social cohesion and maintaining the European social model at this time. So not mixing goals and tools is very important. Fiscal policy is a tool, and we have to choose the tools according to our social objectives, at least what concerns the progressive perspective on all this. So this is definitely not the last conference which we have had. There will be many others to follow. I thank David Rinaldi, who has been planning, organizing, masterminding much of this. And obviously, we're going to prepare the next steps, and we will count on your active cooperation. Thank you very much.